Well, welcome to tonight's licensing subcommittee meeting. My name is Councillor Callum Nimmo, and I will be chairing tonight's meeting. The meeting is being broadcast live on the council's YouTube channel. And if I lose connection and cannot return, Councillor Jacqueline Daly will take over from me. Firstly, I would like to remind all participants of a few housekeeping points. Please keep your microphones muted unless you are speaking. Please keep your camera turned on when you are speaking at the hearing. Please note that the chat function has been disabled. If parties wish to add any additional information other than at their allotted time to speak, they must use the raise the hand function so they are not missed. I also ask that members keep their questions and comments brief and to the point. So I move on to item number 1 of the agenda, which is apologies for absence, of which we have none. Item 2 is declarations of interest. So do members have any declarations of interest?
No.
No. No, that's a no. So you move on to item number 3, which is the Little Blue Door, 871 to 873 Fulham Road, London, SW6 5HP. And I'd like to ask everyone participating to introduce yourselves as I call on you. So we should have with us Alan Thomas, who is the applicant's agent.
That's correct, Chair.
Thank you. We should have Amy Caitlin, who's also the agent's applicant. No, we don't.
No, not today.
But I do understand we have the 2 directors of the business. So would you both like to briefly introduce yourself?
Yes, so my name's Jamie Hazel. I am co-founder and co-managing director of Little Door & Co. And Little Blue Door is one of our venues.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Cameron Dadashti, and again co-founder, co-MD since the very start with Jamie Hazel.
Excellent, thank you very much. We also should have with us Matt Tucker, who's the interim licensing policy and administration team leader.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning. Sorry, good evening, rather. It's been a long day, Chair. Good evening, Chair. Good evening, everyone. My name is Matt Tucker. I'm the interim licensing team leader. I'm purely here in an observational capacity as it's Neil's first evening presenting at a subcommittee. So if there's anything, as he's new to us, but by no stretch new to licensing, if you need anything technical answered, I am available should you need it. Although I don't think you will. He's very capable.
Thank you, Matt. We have Neil, very capable Neil Gardiner. Are you here, Neil?
Good evening, Chair. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name's Neil Gardner, Licensing Officer, and I'll be presenting the application for everybody this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we also have Gerta Kodilash, who's the legal advisor.
Good evening, everyone. I'm a senior solicitor in Planning, Licensing and Highways Department.
Thank you very much. And objecting, we have Tim Fuller, who's speaking on behalf of Sarah Shillingford and Robin Ada. Do we have Mr. Fuller? You might be on mute.
Yeah, got you. Hi, good evening. This is Tim Fullwood. I'm here representing myself as a neighbour living in Felden Street. I'm also representing Robin Adder, who unfortunately can't be here. Robin is the chairman of Felden Street and Swift Street neighbourhood. So he asked me to represent him at this meeting.
Thank you very much. So I'm moving to procedure. So before we consider the application today, may I confirm that in addition to the main agenda, a supplementary agenda A was also published today, namely the 21st of October 2025. So I'll briefly explain the procedure the committee will follow. So we will hear from the following. Firstly, the licensing officer will introduce the application. Then we'll hear from the objector and finally the applicant. Usually each party will address the committee for a maximum of 5 minutes. Following the presentation by all parties, the committee may ask questions of any party or other person who is present at the hearing, and except committee members, no party has the right to ask questions of any other party at any time during the hearing. And following the presentation and questioning, each party will be allowed a maximum of 3 minutes to sum up their case or representation, following which the committee will retire for deliberations, and upon its return, I will announce the committee's decision. So first of all, I'm turning to the presenting officer. So can I ask the licensing officer, Neil Gardner, to introduce the application, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. On the 5th of August 25, the Licensing Authority received an application for a variation of a premise licence in respect of the Little Blue Door 871 to 873, Fulham Road, London, submitted by Thomas & Thomas Partners Solicitors. The current premise licence displaying licensable activities can be seen as Appendix 1, which is page 21 of your pack. The application for a variation of a premise licence to increase the licensable hours by an additional 1 hour on a Thursday, Friday and Saturday each week can be seen as Appendix 2, page 32. The applicant has agreed further conditions with the Metropolitan Police, and these can be seen as Appendix 3, page 50. We also now have the supplementary agenda, Pack A, Appendix Item 3A, which contains further information from the applicant and historic temporary event notices. A map showing the location of the premises and neighbouring licensed premises is contained at Appendix 4, page 54. The licensing section received 2 representations based on public nuisance, as seen at Appendix 5, which is page 58 to 59 of your packs. In determining this application, the committee must have regard to the representations and take such of the following steps as it considers necessary for the promotion of the licensing objectives, and Chair, the options available to you tonight are to grant the application in full, grant the application in part, modifying the proposed hours, activities or conditions, or to reject the application, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Neil. And sorry, Mr. Thomas, we'll turn to the applicant later, but you're not allowed to ask any questions of any other party during the meeting, I'm afraid.
No, I wasn't going to, Chair. I was simply, just before you hear from the interested party, I was going to be asking for an extra 5 minutes. And of course, if you gave it to me, which of course is in your discretion, you would have to offer that to the interested party as well. So I thought I would mention that before you hear from the interested party.
Okay, thank you very much. So we did cover this in deliberations with officers beforehand, but Tim has not made a valid representation, hence why he has 10 minutes to speak, and you have 10 minutes to speak afterwards. But the 2 people that he is speaking on behalf of, namely Sarah Shillingford and Robert Ada, have made valid representations. So to that extent, you both have 10 minutes to speak, considering the number of valid representations that have been made. Hopefully that makes sense.
Absolutely, and it's only because I thought I heard you say 5 earlier. 10 minutes is absolutely fine. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So on that note, I would like to turn to Tim Fuller, who is speaking on behalf of those 2 aforementioned people. You have up to 10 minutes to speak.
Thank you very much. I don't think I'll need the full 10 minutes. I'll just sort of set the background. Felden Street leads, for those who don't know, leads off Munster Road, almost directly opposite the Durrell Arms, and in very close proximity to the back of Tesco's, and Little Blue Door is on the opposite side of the Fulham Road. Felden Street have seen over the years increasing amounts of antisocial behaviour in the street as a result of drunken behaviour, and I'm not going to try and attribute that to the Blue Door by any means. I have no evidence to suggest that comes from their customers, but we have seen instances of people being sick in the street. We've had people urinating in front gardens, and we've had damage to front gardens and properties. As partly as a result of that, we have the street pays for its own security. So we have security between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. on the street, which was as a result of concerns over burglaries, car theft and antisocial behaviour, and that has worked very well. The prime reason for our objection is that we don't believe this is outside of the policy guidelines as set down by the council. As I've asked the question of our ward councillor, who has confirmed that the area we are in falls under the definition of mixed. So the current licence that the Little Blue Door has is at the maximum of the opening times allowed for the days that it is open within the current guidelines. Our concern is that by giving permission to Little Blue Door, so this is not, I'm not in any way trying to have a go at Little Blue Door and say that they are disreputable. This is not a comment against Little Blue Door per se. This is a comment that we don't want to see precedents and policy slippage whereby the area around Felden Street could become more of a late night venue. We have a number of other licensed premises in the area, including the Durrell Arms. We have another formerly licensed premises area, which is currently closed, which was a German beer bar, which sought to get extended hours, but has never reopened. And we also have the Brown Cow. There are also a number of restaurants, but they are what I would call predominantly, potentially late night venues. So, as I say, our main reason for objecting is predominantly against setting this a precedence for other licensed premises to use this application as a means of extending hours, so that the area goes from being a mixed residential area, where in the case of Felden Street, it's an unusual street in that we have no flats. We are family homes, and we don't want to see our residential area becoming a late night venue area. I hope that's understood. I'm not attacking anything that Little Blue Door have put in their application, other than the precedents set for the area. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. Thank you for your brevity and your speech there. I would now like to ask the applicants to speak. Mr. Thomas and the co-directors, you have up to 10 minutes to address the committee. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. This is a small independent business founded and run by friends Jamie and Cam. You're going to hear from Jamie in a moment. Little Blue Door has operated without issue, as far as we know, complaints to the council for 7 years. They have late licenses in all of their 6 premises? 5. And obviously you've seen the brand document in the additional submissions. We are asking, Chair, for 1 extra hour on Thursday, Friday and Saturday. So Thursday would become 1 and Friday and Saturday become 2. Now, I think the crux of it is whether we fall within that town centre policy. The hours that we've applied for certainly fall within the town centre policy, but I'm going to come back to that in just a moment, if I may. Additional conditions you'll see in the report have been agreed with the police, and no representations have been submitted by any responsible authority. The interested parties have, well, you've heard what they said. I'm not going to repeat that. Chair, would it be possible just to bring up the map that we submitted within our summary proposals on the screen so you can see exactly where we are? Or perhaps should we come back to that at the end of the 10 minutes? Would that be possible?
I think take it as read that people have viewed the agenda, please, and to continue on. And
thank you, Chair. You can, I don't want to make this point too clumsily, but you can see where we are and you can see where the interested parties are. And it is on the significantly on the other side of the road and set back. There have been no representation from anyone living, if I can put it this way, close to the premises, or indeed on our dispersal route. I think the salient and seminal point, therefore, is the point about policy and the town centre policy in particular. The statement of licensing policy does have this matrix in terms of the hours and refers to town centres. The difficulty is the statement of licensing policy itself doesn't say what those town centres are. And it might sound obvious that they're Shepherd's Bush, Hammersmith, Fulham, but unfortunately it doesn't set out exactly what the town centres are in the statement of licensing policy. It's not clear. What is clear, paragraph 9 of the policy at paragraph H, is that there is reference to both local town centres and larger town centres, and they are described in the round in the same sort of context. So we are, and I think, and this is not meant to be a criticism, slightly in the dark as to what the town centre policies are. But putting that to one side just for a moment, that of course is not the only policy issue here. Your policy, of course, regardless of whether we're clear on what is a town centre and what is not in the policy, your policy is, of course, to determine the application on its respective merits, irrespective to an extent of what the policy says. And those merits are that we say it is not likely that the proposed use would either add to cumulative impact or undermine the licensing objectives. And it may indeed promote the licensing objectives, particularly in relation to women's safety and the additional conditions which we've agreed with the police. So when you look at the policy considerations in policy 3 of your policy, and this is, I'm not going to repeat everything that's in the presentation, but it's whether licensed activities are likely to have an adverse impact. And I emphasize that word likely. Secondly, whether there would be a substantial increase in cumulative impact. Thirdly, whether there are suitable levels of public transport. And again, that word likely, would it be likely that this application would lead to a harmful and unmanageable increase in car parking, etc.? But moreover, and probably most importantly, there are no representations from any responsible authorities, and that is a key facet of what your policy looks to, because of course the responsible authorities are the experts when it comes to crime, disorder, public nuisance and public safety. So the Little Blue Door is ideally positioned in what we say is a town centre location, and the extra hour will support a dynamic independent business in Fulham. I'm going to hand over to Jamie, if I may, and Jamie's just going to add a bit of meat onto that bone, if I may. Jamie, can you just describe the Little Blue Door, the concept, the sort of flat share concept first?
Absolutely. So I think sort of fundamental to our concept and our business across all our venues is we create home style spaces based on fictional flat shares. It's a unique, friendly and welcoming concept, really designed to make people feel at home when they're out and about. We're deliberately a cute brand, and our concept is very cute in the way it's put together. And that in direct opposition to being a sort of rowdy club or bar. We design our venues to feel homely and welcoming and cozy and safe.
The demographic, what's your typical demographic here and elsewhere?
So I think our typical demographic is 25 to 35-year-old working professionals, but with a very healthy representation from an older demographic as well. And I think partially because of our emphasis on safety and security, our venue is really beloved by a female demographic. I think 80% of our Instagram followers are female between the ages to 25 and 35. And a huge part of this is down to the efforts we put into creating a really safe and secure.
And those efforts in terms of security and management?
As in what?
Well, I mean, in terms of safeguarding, is there what's your policy on drunkenness and drugs, etc.?
Well, I mean, we put a huge amount of effort and energy into how we manage our internal security policies. We have a 7-page door policy document for all our security teams who are given huge amounts of training. Our internal teams are given a huge amount of training, and we above all, there's a culture within our business to prioritize safety and security.
And one important point that I think you missed earlier, I think you've described it in the past, and I think this is really sums it up quite well, that you're a members club without being a members club, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's something that we're often described of is like having like the feeling of a membership club without needing a membership. And I think that's for two reasons, because we create attractive aspirational spaces, but also because we give people a feeling of belonging and safety and security.
And why apply for the extended
Yes.
license?
But very good question. So I think there are two main reasons that we're applying for the extension. So one is we have the customer demand for it. It's something we consistently see as our customers want a whole night experience. And in our humble opinion, this is actually better for our licensing objectives because it keeps people in our venue, which is an incredibly well-managed, safe, secure space. And we're incredibly proficient at managing this from when people enter to when people disperse. We've got 7 years experience here and a management team who've been with us for almost half a decade.
Thank you. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, no, I was going to say, secondly, you know, and we don't want to labour this point too much, but we're in well-reported, very difficult times for hospitality. We pay our taxes, we pay our staff very well, but you know, some of our trading periods have decreased in the current climate. And we believe that this extra hour will actually give us the stability and longevity that we need as a business and to secure the venue.
Did you deal with, I'm sorry if I missed it, Jamie,
Yeah.
and this is the last point, Jack, so you've been very patient. Did you deal with the point as to why your customers want the extra time?
Yes, so I think, you know, our customers want the extra time because they like being with us in the venue and there is the demand for them to be out later.
And presumably, so they don't have to go.
Exactly, and so we'd much rather, we consider it better in terms of our licensing objectives, but they stay with us rather than marauding around the streets looking for somewhere else.
Marauding is one way of putting it, I suppose. But Chair, thank you. That's the application or summary of it, at least.
Thank you very much. Just to let Tim know, I'm afraid you can't ask any questions of any other party during the hearing, I'm afraid, but you will have 3 minutes at the end to summarise your case if you want to add any additional points, but I'm afraid procedure dictates that you are unable to ask any questions at present. So we move to committee member questions. Can I ask each committee member to ask questions of any party about the application and issues that have been raised at the hearing in relation to the 4 licensing objectives, which need I remind us are the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. And I see Councillor Stanton is right out the gates there. So Councillor Stanton.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, everybody who's spoken so far. I have a question. Sorry, firstly, Neil, welcome.
Welcome, Councillor. Thank you.
I have a question for Neil, although I suspect that Matt might jump in and say that he might like to answer it. So I'll leave it to the two of you to decide. And really, it's just to explain to the committee and those people who are observing here what the statement of licensing policy is, what its standing is, and also how the different zoning areas are, I won't say defined because they're not really defined, but some examples of what the different zones are and the thought processes that go into how the different zones are applied.
Thank you, Councillor. I can't probably struggle on the zoning because I've not got enough experience of being at Hammersmith and Fulham. But with regards to the policy, the statement of licensing policy, it's a 5-year programme that is a guideline for us as licensing officers and the local authority to follow. And one could argue it's best practice and that the hopes and dreams of what we want to achieve within the borough, keeping people safe at all times. And public safety is first and foremost the prime objective of the borough, and the committee papers and the policy are written to achieve that objective.
Thank you very much. It was a nice simple one for you to start with. Matt, if you're on, can you
Sure.
maybe just flesh out the zoning?
Absolutely, Councillor. Yes, so you're absolutely right, and so is the applicant the applicant's agent rather, in terms of saying that our statement of licensing policy does not specifically say, does not give identifiable areas as examples of what our three zoning areas look like. However, the general rule of thumb is that you would probably see a residential area as an area where there is the vast majority of buildings predominantly would be residential, with the odd licensed premises or the odd commercial premises in, say, a road or a larger area. If members look at the grading that's listed in the papers, if you start from residential areas and work your way leftward into mixed-use areas and then town centres, the mixed-use areas are predominantly areas where there is a mix to a larger or greater extent of residential and commercial. And predominantly the town centres are where there's an overwhelming amount of commercial. So in the context of this application, the applicant's right. It would be fair to say that the hours being applied for are nearer the town centre end of what our policy says. But predominantly there is commercial and residential in this area to an equal extent. So that's why we've classed it as a mixed use area. The percentages change. But ultimately, if you feel that the application should be granted and that despite it being in a mixed use area, if you feel that the application is robust enough to be granted and you don't feel that the licensing objectives will be undermined, you are free to depart from the guidelines. And essentially, as Neil was quite rightly said, they're just guidelines. It's entirely up to you as a committee as to how you want to proceed.
Thank you. So just to clarify, and I obviously know the area very well. The ward I represent is off the Munster Road, so and Feldon is actually the very first road that's not in it. So although Fulham Road itself has a lot of commercial property, there's also residential properties above the commercial. And as soon as you go one street back behind Fulham Road, it's all residential. So you're saying that on that basis, you would say this is mixed use rather than town centre?
Yes, I wouldn't class it at all. And if we felt as officers when we were preparing the report it was town centre, we would have specified that. I would hasten to add the mixed use doesn't necessarily mean that there has to be just licensed premises in a commercial area. It could be one licensed premises and a pool of other commercial as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I think, Chair, that's probably all I have for the moment. I may have some more questions later, though, but for now I'll pass over to other members of the committee.
Thank you, Councillor Stanton. Councillor Daly, do you have questions?
I do. Thank you very much, Chair. And welcome, Neil. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Councillor.
Can I first off, can I ask Neil, can you talk me through, now Mr. Fuller talked to us about the door alarms, the Brown Cow, some restaurants, a Belgian beer place. Can you talk me through their licensing hours, please?
Certainly, Councillor. I'm going to refer to page 55 of the pack, but I'm going to describe what is on that page for everybody's convenience. I had a look at this earlier today, and it's clear that on the pack, the Durrell pub that has been mentioned earlier, which is 704 Fulham Road, has got a lighter license than the rest within the pack. And at the weekends, late night refreshment is till 1:30 in the morning. Recorded music is till 1, live music till 1, exhibition of a film till 1:30. And the sale of alcohol, which I suppose is the crux of most licenses, is till 1. And obviously you will be aware that you're being asked to license this application till 2 at the weekends.
Thank you. Can I ask Mr. Fuller, Could you tell me a little bit more about the character of that area of Fulham Road, please? Ms. Fuller, I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Technical things aren't my best. Are you asking about? It is complicated whether you're asking about Fulham Road or Feldon Street, because you don't have to go very far back from the Fulham Road to be in what is.
Well, I'm really trying to just establish the character of the area that the bar is on, rather than the residential area.
The Fulham Road has got mixed commercial on the ground floor and mainly apartments above. So we've got flower shops, and we've got nail bars, and we've got upmarket delis, and we've got a few restaurants along the Fulham Road. Along the stretch where the Blue Door is, there's an upmarket paint shop. There's a shop selling trainers, bespoke trainers, and then I think after the Blue Door, going further down, there isn't anything on that side, and the only thing opposite it is the door alarms, and then after that it's all residential.
Thank you very much. Mr. Thomas, may I ask you the same question? Mr. Fuller put to us that he's concerned about the character of the area being changed by this license. I'll just ask you if you could just speak to the character of the area as it is.
Sure. I think
that risk.
Of course, I think there's two issues here. Firstly, I think the fact that there might be some residential above some of the shops certainly doesn't make it a residential area. And I don't think it necessarily makes it a mixed use area either. You've got to look at the attributes of what premises are on the Fulham Road. And I indeed was looking at the same schedule which the licensing presenting officer was just referring to. And there are 2 or 3 pages of licensed premises within that immediate vicinity. And yes, not all of them have late hours. The Durrell being a pub being the latest of them, I think. But there are 3 pages of licensed premises. Now, I don't think you get 3 pages of licensed premises in a residential area. I don't think you get 3 pages of licensed premises in a mixed use area. I think this location has got all the attributes, both good and bad, of a town centre. I think if that was the question you were asking, Jamie's here. Jamie knows it better than I do in terms of what it's like there. But in terms of policy, I think from what you've seen from the officer's report and what you've heard, it's got all the attributes of a town centre, or at least a small town centre.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Could I please ask Mr. Haziel if you could really sort of talk through? So you understand that the jeopardy is Mr. Fuller is speaking on behalf of 2 residents, and they believe that granting a late license would change the character of the area.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, can you talk to me about the character of the area, please, and sort of speak to that point, and perhaps tell us how it wouldn't be changing the character, perhaps.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you for asking me on this. I think that I would definitely see Fulham Road as being a very buzzy commercial area. I think that's one of the reasons which first drew us to open a business there. In our minds, it's definitely a commercial area. It's full of a number of different hospitality venues. You know, we feel very lucky to be part of a neighborhood and a community of hospitality venues, all of whom we have close relationships with.
I think sorry to cut across you, David.
Yeah.
I think the question was, do you think that the character of the area will be impacted detrimentally by you opening 1 hour later? I think that was the more specific question.
Yes, and my answer to
Sorry.
that would be very clearly no. I don't think so at all.
Thank you. I had another question that I wanted to ask. Neil, in fact. No, don't worry. I think I've got the answer. I've just checked through. No, thank you, Chair.
Sure, Councillor, I'm happy to help.
On that note, I have a question of my own, maybe to the licensing authority. But when Tim spoke earlier, the thrust of the complaint was, the Little Blue Door is a well-managed establishment. However, setting a sort of precedent for other businesses to open later and later. I was just wondering if you could maybe speak to that concern, because obviously as the vice chair of this committee, I understand that we consider each application on its own merit. So in terms of this kind of slippery slope argument, what kind of basis does it have in licensing policy? And could you advise the committee in relation to that concern specifically?
Do you mind if I answer that, Chair?
No, I asked Neil.
Oh, so sorry.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, I mean, the truth of the matter is it could set a later could set a precedent in the area, and should the license be granted, there wouldn't stopping anybody from trying to mirror the images. Mirror the hours of the Little Blue Door and submitting their own applications in almost through a competition to match the hours of the Little Blue Door. Does that answer your question, Councillor? Sorry.
Indeed, but in a certain sense of us being able to grant those applications, I mean, just if we consider each application on its own merit, my understanding is that if the circumstances were different, there was more residents who objected, or we weren't happy with the conditions, we would still be perfectly at liberty to turn it down. Just by nature of granting this license doesn't necessarily mean we would be more likely to grant other ones.
Sorry, Councillor, is that your question?
Yeah, I mean, just sort of clarify that matter, because
it's certainly each case on its merits, and I think it's for the committee to weigh up this application against the licensing objectives, and if there is, and how much impact there is on the licensing objectives.
Thank you. A further question from me, then I'll come back to Councillor Daly. But the applicant sort of spoke to there not being any complaints in relation to this premises. However, in the reports pack, there does seem to be a detail about one on the 15th of December a couple of years ago. But it says this was withdrawn, or there wasn't enough. The complaint could not be substantiated. So does that mean for all intents and purposes there is no enforcement history, there is no complaint if that complaint itself couldn't be substantiated? Matt, do you want to come in here?
Sure, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to pick that one up if I could. Yeah, so essentially we have a stepped approach to enforcement, as I'm sure you're probably aware. So if we receive a complaint, we undertake a reasonable amount of investigation to understand what's gone on and if any action needs to be taken against the premises license holder. My reading of the record was that while someone did make an allegation, or there was some sort of investigation, it's well before my time, I'm afraid, but effectively that didn't translate into us taking any enforcement action. So we can afford to close our file, and I think we did at that point. We are entitled to reopen it at any stage, but on this occasion we didn't. So it would be safe to say that since then we have had no discernible complaints about the premises. Now, obviously, obviously we do try to be as open as we can in terms of saying, well, if you have a complaint, contact us, but we can only rely on those things that are reported to us. Councillor, hope that clarifies.
So the complaint could be reopened if further evidence or something came to light, but for the time being, it's dormant.
That's right, Councillor. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm just I've got it in front of me. It says on 4.2 temporary event notices, this information is to follow shortly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just to take to your point, so we have been, when the report was first written, we were in the process of training new starters. So we have been in a position where we've supplied that information now as a supplementary appendix, which is the additional supplementary document that you have, which is on top of what the applicant has already supplied. It's the very last two pages of the supplementary agenda, and it does list a vast number of temporary event notices in the last 2 years. So when reading that in combination with the enforcement history, I think it would be reasonable for us to conclude from an enforcement perspective that whilst temporary event notices have been applied for the timings which they're now looking to reach on a permanent basis effectively, those appear to have been run without incident from our perspective.
Yes, indeed, I can see that they went from 2 a.m. And nothing untoward. Councillor Daly, you have further questions?
Thanks very much. Chair. Neil, Appendix 3 is refers to a representation made by the police. I understand that the applicant has accepted all of the kind of additional conditions. Is that correct?
That is correct, Councillor, yes.
Okay. Mr. Fuller, may I ask you, have you seen Appendix 3 in the public pack?
Yes, I have.
And can you tell me, was any of that reassuring for you?
It's reassuring in relation to the particular premises. It's not reassuring in relation to the area becoming a late night venue.
The character of the area changing.
Yes, and going back to the point that the question that you asked me specifically about the Fulham Road, but the Fulham Road is just one stretch of road, and as I've said before, you don't have to go back more than 20 paces, and you are definitely in a fully residential area.
Thank you. Chair, I have no more questions.
Thank you, Councillor Daly. Councillor Stanton, did you have any further questions or? No. Okay. Well, in which case, we can head to summing up. So can I ask the parties to sum up in the same order in which they introduced? So first of all, can I ask the licensing officer, Neil Gardiner, to sum up, please?
Thank you, Chair. I've got no more further evidence than what I outlined at the beginning of the case. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. And can I ask the objector, Tim Fuller, who I'm near to mind is speaking on behalf of Sarah Shillingford and Robin Ada. You have up to 6 minutes to sum up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just really to raise the points that I was going to make in response to something that was said by the applicant. I did ask through our councillor, Councillor Liam Downer-Sanderson, if there was any clarification on the council on zoning, and he sought clarification from the council, and we got an email from Adrian Overton, who said that currently what the council is using is a map which sets out not what is mixed, but sets out what is town centre, and sets out that there are 3 zones that the council is currently using to define town centre. And they are specifically Fulham Road from Fulham Broadway to the roundabout with Junction and Fulham High Street within this area. And it's clear that on the map that he sent, that the area that we are looking at is not town centre and therefore must be mixed. The second point I'd just like to make, which is a point was made about there not being many objections. I do have a slight concern, and maybe this is me being slightly cynical, but this application was made in August, and I know people within Felden Street who were not aware that the application had been made because they were on holiday. So this application has been made during a holiday period where it is, in my view, and based on speaking to people within the street, a time of year when people are going to be unaware of it because they're away on holiday or more interested in their summer holidays. And my final point really is just to reiterate that we are in a family area. We are keen that we should have within the area opportunities to go to the pub. I like to go to the pub. I have no problems with this. This isn't me trying to say I don't want to have pubs and restaurants around. I'm very keen that we should have a vibrant scene for us to be able to all enjoy it. Little Blue Door came into the area and a business plan on the basis that they knew what the licensing hours were that they were going to get granted and what they have been granted. And I see no reason to extend the licensing hours, especially with the possibility that it sets a precedent for other premises to chase the same hours. I understand it's on a case-by-case basis, but my concern is that I think relying on taking away licenses because you see something has gone wrong is not the right answer. I think it is better to prevent the situation from arising in the first place. So that's my concern. Thank you. Thank you very much for listening to me.
And thank you, Tim, for your speech. And I now turn to the applicant, and you have up to 6 minutes to sum up. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just take the point that Mr. Fuller made about this email that Mr. Overton sent? I haven't seen that. Can I ask you to disregard it? Because none of us have seen it. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I don't think it particularly helped matters because none of us have seen it. But in any event, with the greatest respect, and this is not meant to be a criticism, I'm afraid it is not clear in the policy as to what a town centre is. And I say that in particular, if you look at paragraph 9H of the policy, it talks about town centres and larger town centres. Now, I don't know what they mean by larger town centres. I suspect it means Shepherd's Bush, Hammersmith, etc. But if you're looking at what a town centre is in that concept, we could equally be a town centre because it doesn't, in the policy, it doesn't refer to larger town centres, it refers to town centres. And we have all the attributes of being a town centre, particularly as a town centre isn't defined within that policy. But in any event, Chair, even if you're not with me on it being a town centre in terms of the policy, you look at the application on its merits, and you look at it in terms of the attributes of what the character of the area has been discussed, and the location of it, and particularly the location of the interested parties and the residential. There is no residential representations that are anywhere near these premises, and notwithstanding the application not deliberately was made in August, you would expect if there was a real likelihood of this application being an issue that somebody living closer to it would have objected. I appreciate that's conjecture. So key to this is that the responsible authorities haven't objected. And key to this is the evidence or lack of it that this premises over the last 7 years, with those pages of temporary event notices that you've seen, have been operated poorly and have undermined the licensing objectives. And to be fair to Mr. Fuller, with whom we've spoken actually during the consultation period, Jamie had a long chat with him. He was very candid and fair, making it quite clear that there was no evidence that this premises was in any way responsible or contributed to the problems that the residents had faced. Can I deal with the thorny issue of precedent? And I'm afraid I don't agree that precedent is a reason for refusing the application. There are a couple of reasons for that. If it was, then you would never grant anything. But it's that point on its merits. You can't grant something on its merits and then say it would constitute a precedent. And a precedent, in legal terms, is unlawful and it would be a fetter of your discretion. You'd be doing something which your discretion allows you to do. I think that's the right way of putting it. And there's some case law on that, which your learned legal advisor may well be aware of. And it's the cases of Mead and Pascoe and Jones, and the list goes on. A precedent is never a reason for rejecting an application. But we appreciate the reasons why the residents would be concerned about it. You look at the application on its merits, and particularly in respect of these merits, you look at the likelihood of whether these premises with this management, with this clientele in this location are likely, because that's the relevant test, whether they are likely to cause a substantial increase in cumulative impact or significant adverse impact. Those are the tests under your policy. And we say that there is no evidence of any likelihood. It's a high test for the interested parties to make because of the way that your policy is worded. There is no likelihood, based upon the evidence that you've heard, that this application would undermine the licensing objectives or indeed the policy, irrespective of what the policy is. But you've heard my points of what I think the policy means. But in any event, you look at the respective merits of it. Chair, I don't think there was anything else. If you don't mind me just checking my notes for just a second. I think that's it. Jamie, did you want to add anything else? Chair, they're a really well-run business. You've heard they've got 5 of them across central London, and we hope we can continue working with our neighbours and continue that fine record of no issues that we've had for the last 7 years. But I think the temporary event notices are key evidence that you can that you will have regard to. I would put it no stronger than that.
Thank you very much for your speech. So now I've reached the sort of end. The committee will now retire to take its decision in a separate meeting room. You're welcome to remain in this meeting to hear the committee's decision. However, this may take some time. If you don't want to wait, a summary decision will be published on the council's website tomorrow morning. And so now can I ask the members to turn off their video, mute their microphones, and to join the private Teams meeting for deliberations. Thank you.
How do I do that?
Good evening, everyone. We have a decision. So the committee has decided the following. So the London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham, this is the summary decision of the licensing subcommittee, otherwise known as the committee, on the 21st of October 2025, concerning the Little Blue Door, 871873 Fulham Road, London, SW6 5HP, otherwise known as the premises. The committee has considered an application for a variation of the existing premises license under the Licensing Act 2003, otherwise known as the application, to extend the terminal hours for the existing licensable activities on Thursdays to 1 a.m. and Fridays and Saturdays to 2 a.m. and to amend the hours the premises is opened to the public. In summary, the committee has decided, after taking into account all of the individual circumstances of this case and the promotion of the 4 licensing objectives, to grant the application in full. The committee agreed to replace the existing conditions 9, 13, 14, 17, 18 with the conditions proposed by the police as agreed by the applicant. The committee agreed to add to the existing license 11 additional conditions proposed by the police and agreed by the applicant. The committee decided to impose a condition for the Ask for Angela scheme to be implemented at the premises as well. A copy of this committee's full decision, including its reasons and the full text of the conditions added to the licence, will be sent to the parties forthwith. If the applicant or any other person who has made a relevant representation is unhappy with the decision, they are entitled to appeal to the Magistrates' Court within 21 days from the date of the notification of the full decision. That's from the Licensing Subcommittee on the 21st of October 2025. Well, thank you everyone for attending the hearing tonight, and have good evenings.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Chair.
you very much.